business thing kicks in to me. Well, 3 chapters are good. 50's better. So we were called a service world back in the day, and this is pre-Windows. I mean, it was still DOS. Right. Honestly, I couldn't even turn on a PC. I didn't know how to operate a computer.
Let's start from the beginning. How did this idea start? Hello, everybody. Welcome to Season 1, Episode 1 of Suits and Shoes, What It Takes. Today, we're featuring renowned philanthropist and entrepreneur, Doug Pitt. Doug, actually, early on in his career, he was the original founder of Pitt Technologies. And one of his most recent endeavors is founder of Care to Learn. Along the way, he's had projects in commercial real estate. And as you all know, within an entrepreneurial spirit, there's a lot going on. And so just Care to Learn has had an impact on over 3 million lives. The theme of the podcast is, Doug, you have such a busy life. What does it take to be Doug Pitt?
I'd say it's a little bit of a circus. You got some drama. You got a clown car. You got the skillful act. There's a whole lot going on up there. But I think that creativity is kind of what makes me work.
Yeah.
It's all I know, right?
Yeah.
So it's the tools that I have, but somehow it helps me perform.
Yeah. A lot of times people, when they study successful individuals, they have a tendency to start from, early childhood. So if you're okay with that, I'd like to start with childhood. What was childhood like growing up for you, and what impact did that play on your success later on in life?
I got lucky. I had the Norman Rockwell deal, great mom and dad, and a neighborhood to grow up and friends. And so my support system was really strong. That was great. But I was always a salesman. At 5 years old, I sold June bugs to my neighbors. Why they would want June bugs, I don't know, especially dead ones, but they were my mom's friends and they bought them. So, but I was the kid going door to door with every competition, selling the candy bars, and I wanted to win. I loved to be able to have what a filled out sheet meant for me, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'd come home from school and I'd knock it out till dinner. And so I was just kind of a driven sales guy. I liked those results, and why and the what, I don't know, but there was some satisfaction there, and I wanted to win.
That's awesome. Do you think that was the key to success, just the lucky aspect and starting young? It sounds like from 5 years old. Or do you think it's kind of contingent to each person's uprising from childhood?
My dad didn't have he didn't have that father figure support wise. And, in spite of that, he was successful. So I think everybody has the ability to rally, but no secret. Some have a lot easier path, and it's, the how, the why, and the what. It's pretty muddy, isn't it?
When you share your success story, do you see yourself first generation, second, third generation?
The times are so different, right? It's like comparing Jordan to LeBron, right?
Yeah.
They're just two different eras. They were both the best, right? Yeah. And yet there's no single one. It's Tiger, Jack Nicklaus, right? Yeah. So it's within the eras. I don't think that you compare. I think what you can do is just glean what worked, why it worked in the setting that they were at, right? So I think we're all first generation.
I love that. I think that'll be the quote or highlight. We're all first generation. That's very interesting. Now, as life progressed for you, you got married to a wonderful lady named Lisa. Together, you guys have, beautiful family. Do you see your childhood affecting the success of your family? And a kind of follow-up question on that is, do you do anything differently in raising your children from the way that you were raised?
Again, I had great role models in my parents, but I think we all kind of put our own spin and flavor on it, right? And to say that I got it perfect, I want my kids to do it different. Yeah. I want them to glean what was good and work. I want them to figure out what I did wrong, right? And do better on it. So I think we do improve on it. I can just say as a parent, for Lisa and I, there's only 3 things that matter, and all 3 of them have a first name, and they're our children, right? And the rest of it is really secondary. So when you have that kind of heart and commitment behind it, I want the best for them, but I also want to have have a realization to step back and say, you know what? I don't always have it figured out. Yeah. I'm 57, still making mistakes, and I'll make them at 67. Yeah. That's okay. That's okay. But for their own lives, I want them to pick up and do better than I did.
Yeah. As you know, from a family of 11 siblings, people always ask my parents, what's that one thing that you did that made your kids successful? So I want to ask you that question. What do you think is like the single most effective parenting or dad, mom that they did in your life that you think played a huge role in your success?
I promise you it was nothing that we said. It's what we did, right? It's we learn, we watch, and those are the things that speak to us, those things that are so subtle. And it's also really, what do you do in those tough moments? They're watching you, right? What are you doing in those great moments? What are you doing in those sad moments? They're watching mom and dad. So to think I had any great verbal advice, I hope I had some nuggets to throw out, but that's not what they learned on, right? They learned on whatever they're looking at behind the scenes. So I feel it was a pretty good model to work on, but again, we can all do better.
Yeah, that's awesome. I definitely agree there. I recently had the opportunity to meet someone, I think his name was Rand from Pitt Technologies, your social media guy. And he was just praising the success you guys have had. And I wanted to kind of set the scene. So it's 1991. You're getting ready to start, Pitt Technologies. Can you walk us through how that process looked?
We were called a service world back in the day, and this is pre-Windows. I mean, it was still DOS.
Right.
I mean, it was the Wild West, no internet, no
early
email.
90s.
And so, but actually it was a really great time to enter because it was the Wild West. We were trying to figure out what the standards were going to be. And honestly, I couldn't even turn on a PC. I didn't know how to operate a computer. I just knew it was the future. So hired some smart people, started out in a little 300 square foot office, just me and another guy. And 46 employees today, and we had a Christmas party last night, set a record for the year, but I've got a great partner and someone. He's Kevin started with me when he was 18, and now mid 30s, and he's a lot of that success.
That's amazing. So early 90s, you mentioned, just the beginning of the internet era. I imagine it was very new back then. How did your support look like? Were people thinking you're just crazy, or did you have like a lot of support? Like, hey, go do something that's never been done before.
No, I think, everybody knew computers are it, but it had such a mystique behind it being difficult and hard. And you know what it kind of was, because there were no standards. And so unless you were just somebody that really literally geeked out on it, it was foreign, and you kind of had this trepidation, even the first time you're trying to, what's a mouse and how's this work kind of thing. And, but with that came opportunity. And so our ability to be that gap education wise, it really came down to service. I wasn't selling a computer. I was selling an intermediary, if you will. And that's what we locked on. And I think we did better than everybody else at the time. They were really focused on selling hardware. It was not the end result. Hardware was, a computer was $3,000. And it wasn't a very fast one either. But
I hear it was really big too.
Yes. And heavy. The monitors were heavy. But again, that was the opportunity to help remove the mystique and make it easy. And we really locked, hence the name Service World. We really locked on that side of the business where we felt others weren't doing that. Yeah.
What advice would you have for someone like today, fast forward to, 2023, 2024? Let's use, for example, space travel or something new in our time and age. What advice would you have for someone to kind of go and explore something new when it's just so foreign to today's society?
And, we kind of went through a little cryptocurrency thing, and now AI, and there's a whole bunch of things that are going to get created out of that we don't even know in a couple of years. And really that was what my industry was. I'm selling something right now that wasn't around 18 months ago. And then 18 months later, I'm selling something that wasn't around. And so when you grow up in a business like that, change is kind of the norm. I didn't know it at the time, but that was a real business hack to be able to understand change, embrace it, know, and really that's your dynamic. In real estate, people don't like to change. It's not let's do it different kind of mentality per se. With me, whatever I wake up that morning is the best decision. That's the best decision. And if it's different than what I told you yesterday, tough. Why would I write something out just because I've already invested time and money into it? On a chance that it could work? No, I have better information today. So let's tweak, let's move, let's pivot. And the tech world did that for me. So it can be frustrating for family. It can be frustrating for my business partners because sometimes I may come off a little wishy-washy or, you change your mind all the time. I do, but there's a rhyme and a reason to it. And it's more calculated than it looks. It can be a little helter-skelter at times. It seems like it, but it's not. I have new information. And so change does not bother me at all. It's what I grew up with. So that advice to those young entrepreneurs, embrace it. You're going to have to, right? You're trying to figure out an industry. And really, it doesn't even have to be something new and cutting edge. You're opening a drywall business. How do you do it better? It's not a super sexy business. So how do you do it better than everybody else? There's a way. And again, it may be like me in the early days. It's really not about the drywall. It's about the service. What problems are you solving for your customers? That's what you're trying to hone in on. So, but change can be good. It can be very profitable.
Wanted to kind of ask you a question on that note. I imagine as a successful entrepreneur, you get approached a lot with different services and sales pitches. What is something that stands out to you, whether it's sales of a product or a service, that kind of helps you make that deciding decision whether or not to go with that company?
Age, you're going to make bumps, right? And early on, you may take on some things that you just shouldn't have. And there's a little fear of missing out. You see some friends being successful in an arena. You want to be part of it. There's a point you've got to stay in your lane, and because your lane's hard enough, right? There's just all kinds of things going on there. But when I start jumping out, trying to invest in things that I really don't know about, it takes a lot more work. I'm not saying don't do it. I do do it. I do it. But the smarter version of me who's older is a lot more calculating. And I'm thinking through worst case scenarios. That sounds negative. No, it's smart. Sometimes people think, well, okay, what's the worst? What's the best? Hopefully I'll land in the middle. No. I want to know there's some upside or I wouldn't do it. But what's the worst thing that's going to take me out? That's what my decision is based on. Can I live with the worst? If I can't, the answer is no.
We were definitely learning that at 27 North. I remember when we were starting early on, we were doing custom projects and we thought we could do, 50 different floor plans. And then, at the same time, I can't remember who it was, told us just focus on one floor plan and one product. And we launched our venture line. And the time it took us to do one custom project, we were doing 6, 7 of the venture lines. And we had the process honed down. We had the parts honed down, and the margins we were making on our standard line was almost double of our custom projects. So that is very interesting that you highlight that. In regards to investment deals, whenever you're looking at a deal, do you have like a golden number of ROI on a deal, or do you just kind of tailor it on the industry?
It's also where I'm at in my stage in life. Because I'm in real estate, cash is king. And so there's these highs and lows where I need to be pretty cash heavy running into a deal. Then there's a time in that cycle where I've got a payback on a deal and I'm sitting on some cash and need it to move. So that does affect my thinking sometimes, and also runway. If I think I'm not going to need this cash, I might jump into something that I wouldn't on the other side of that cycle, if that makes sense. But no, I don't have an ROI. Again, I don't put a lot of stock in people's blue sky numbers. They really don't mean anything to me. In fact, a lot of times, if I feel like they're selling me, you're going to lose me trying to impress me with some big returns. I'm not going to get swayed by it. I want to know, again, what's on the low side. I have a good idea what it's going to make. I have a good idea where you're going to land. And if I can live with that, that's great. But again, right now, if you can't beat a CD, and I don't think you can, and I've got way less risk, I'll pass and just take the CD.
Right.
Again, base hits and doubles. I don't, everything doesn't need to be a home run. If so, you'll always be at the plate swinging. That's no good.
For, in today's society, you have, famous individuals like Kevin O'Leary saying, hey, if it's not 50% or doubling, ridiculous. What
super
number?
Smart guy, obviously. But,
he's made it in life. So.
And it's easy to say when you're rich, right? It's easy but my fundamentals don't change based on my bank account. It's what got me here. And so if anything, I'm going to tune down to what I know works. And Again, there's an inner monologue that happens that I'm even kind of parsing my words a little bit right now because it almost sounds weird coming out of my own mouth. I don't speak it, but I know in my heart the mental gymnastics that I do on a deal. And again, this is a lot more mature Doug than you had even 5 years ago, 10 years ago, because that's the way this thing works. You do get better and better. It'd be nice to have been a little smarter along the way.
I think we all could say that.
I've left a lot of money on the table throughout the years. That again, it's part of the education, the price, right? So, not that I'd necessarily go back and change it, but
that's funny you mentioned that.
The successes.
That's one of our questions. Is what do you feel like is a deal that you missed in your career, and what potential dollar amount would you put on that deal that you missed out?
Oh, that would always come down to some different real estate deals. But did it rob me from doing some of the things I did are super expensive? I don't know. It's, and would I have been more successful with them? I was lucky enough to have a little breakfast thing with Damon Johns, and I asked him about kind of the same thing. What'd you miss out on that you regret? And he said, and I thought it was a great answer, is that they were super successful. That doesn't mean I would have made it successful. So I can't look back and say I really missed out, because you know what? This shark did better than I did on that project, and they would have made a lot more money. So, and they did. So to say that was a lost dollar for dollar, I can't say that. I may not have been as good. Yeah. And so it's the same way on some of these deals.
Almost like it's a meant to be mentality instead of regret.
That's right. And, if I'd had a bunch of brain power there, we built almost $100 million worth of medical clinics in the last 7-8 years. That was never part of the plan. Yeah. People don't even really know I'm in real estate to that level. And again, I don't talk about it, need to.
Yeah. Do you feel like for an individual to be really successful, that they need to have that strong social network of strong connections? Or do you think that really, like we talked about first generation, if you, let's say, an immigrant or you grew up in the suburbs in a really low income environment, do you think those people have an equal opportunity to those that have a strong social network?
The X factor is the want to. Give me an immigrant that wants to, and I'll take that over 10 guys with golden spoons, right? Yeah. Why? That's the X factor that matters. Now, let's don't pretend that access is great. Yeah. And anything that helps expedite you along the way is great, but give me the X factor all day long.
That's awesome.
All day long. One thing I did do when I was young that paid huge dividends, we had a group of guys when I was about 25, about 15 of us, and we had a speaker every month come and talk and dinner, and it was a real fireside chat deal. What worked, what didn't, the whole story. We didn't want to, there was no sales pitch here. It's really just your life deal. And this was John Q. Hammonds at the time, and John Ashcroft, and just the most successful Patty Penny, and just a lot of local people that we have done well. And I always wanted to know, what did you do wrong? What would you change? And because my brain was saying, if I can learn from them, that's going to put me that much further ahead than everybody else. So I may have sounded like a negative guy, but I always locked into those kind of questions. And so from my 25 to 30, 30 to 35, 35 to 40, in these 5-year chunks, I'm trying to speed up doing better in those times by really just learning. But I did have some great people along the way, Jack Stack, Jim Anderson, my dad, and my father-in-law, and just some business people. I wasn't afraid to ask questions. Yeah, important. Yeah. Super important. To act like you know the answer, you're an idiot, right? I'm in real estate, done a lot of it, and still today I call up Matt Miller and some of my best friends that are in real estate, and we talk shop. And I'm saying, what would you do? You need that it's the forest for the trees sometimes, but heck, we're still learning all the time. So
what about for someone who's new to it? You've highlighted that mentors are a key role in this. How would someone new in an industry go about finding mentors?
You've done a pretty good job. You pick up the phone. Don't be bashful, right? Yeah. And that's how you do it. If you want it, go get it. And that's how you do it. Again, as the saying goes, the answer was already no if you didn't ask, right? Yeah. So what's no?
Yeah. Almost like you have nothing to lose making that phone call.
You don't. And the good thing is most successful people, they've gone through the trials and tribulations, the bruises. They've been bloody. They know how hard this thing is, right? They know what it takes to compete. It's almost nice to sit back if somebody wants to know and to help somebody not make those mistakes. So it's probably easier than you think.
Yeah.
And, but ask questions all the time. You know, they talk about guys being proud when they're driving. They won't stop, ask for directions. Heck no. I will pull over and, you know, if my GPS thing can't figure it out, I will ask questions. Why? It's that efficiency business thing in me. I want to know now. I don't need to save face.
Yeah.
I don't want to drive around lost.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that in my business either. I don't want to drive around lost.
That's awesome. You had mentioned that a key in scaling a business over, you know, you're going on to a third decade now is pivoting. Something that's recently caused a lot of turmoil, I think, across all industries is high interest rates. Can you cover how you went about that, or how you would recommend pivoting a situation like that when rates spike to the degree that they are now?
That's a tough one. Yeah, it completely changes the dynamic because, again, sometimes real estate takes a while to get into it. So by the time you've spent money and you're emotionally ready to launch, well, your performers were at 4.5, right? And now all of a sudden they're at 8 and worse. And it doesn't model. And yet you've had a year of runway trying to get this ready, and you need deal flow to keep the machine going. And there's some panic that sets in. So do you go ahead and launch and try, or do you know, so that is a super open-ended question that's very relevant right now. And it really depends too in your portfolio. What's dragging it down? Do you have some wins at some lower rates? Can you maybe do some adjustments there to help some of your other deals? So,
well, real estate's big right now, so let's use that as an example. So, you know, someone's planning to do a big real estate deal, say $100 million deal. They have a tenant lined up. Let's call it a big commercial property, and rates double. Do you think in this economic world that we're living in is something you would keep trying to figure out, or ride out the storm mentality?
I'm not a ride out kind of guy by nature, so I've got to talk myself into what's right for the deal. And a lot of times that's the play. You do ride it out. But what do banks do? Banks get more conservative and they find partner banks. They don't want to take on the whole thing either because they understand the risk. So if a bank wants to bring in partners and minimize their risk, that may be good for you too. So maybe it was a deal 2 years ago I would have taken down by myself. Now it's maybe a deal where I'm going to do 3 partners. I'm just going to do 20% of the deal. You know, I don't need to be the big entity. Yeah. And so again, you're in the environment. You got to play to what works, but you also have to minimize your risk. Yeah. Why bet the farm? Ever. Yeah. Ever. Unless you're just starting out, you know, and it's like, you know, not much, you know, really what am I going to lose here? Yeah. I'll take as much as I can swing at, but after you arrive and got to a place, there are just certain things that you need to make sure you're not risking.
Yeah, that's very wise. When you're looking for a partner, you've mentioned a few times now diversifying, whether it be with a bank or an individual. What are you looking for in that partnership?
Partners are tough. If you can ever do it without a partner, that's just the way it is. Even the best of times, there's just a dynamic that raises its head from time to time. But for economies of scale to grow, it's part of the deal. Oh boy, that's a tough one. I would say it's more about just the partner. It's their family situation. It's their wife. It's their circumstances in life. There's just a lot that comes into play. And I would advise young people to be very, very careful when it comes to partners. You know, a lot of times 3 or 4 or 5 buddies will come together and they'll buy a property and they'll all sign these guarantees. Well, guess what? Things go bad. As long as one guarantee can do it, they'll let the others run. And that's what happens. And so you've really got to be careful on what you're signing up for. Multiple partners don't always make it safe unless your guarantees are segmented to where I'm only responsible for my 20% if we're 5, you know. But our banks usually won't do that on, you know, a younger portfolio of guys. You're all signing up 100%. And so if you have this guy has a hardship and leaves and this guy has a hardship, you're still on the hook for the whole deal. So don't be so anxious to have a deal to be doing real estate. Look at a bunch of deals. You're going to get so much smarter and pass on them and just learn. But be really slow to put your name on a contract. things get real.
Yeah. My dad growing up oftentimes told us don't do business with friends and family. What is your view on doing business? Let's start with friends and then kind of go in and feed into what is your recommendations for doing business with family. So starting with friends.
Dad's a smart guy. My dad was my bank early on. I didn't have 10 cents. And so I borrowed it from mom and dad. And there's a really good and bad to that. One, I got quick access to capital. The bad thing is I got quick access to capital.
Yeah.
There's nothing more stressful than knowing your parents' money, knowing I'm spending their retirement.
Yeah.
And if things start to get a little wobbly, or the stress of thinking I'm going to lose my parents' retirement, which early on, guess what? There were months where I'm just like, I don't know if we're going to make it. I don't know. 8th month, 9th month, 11th month, it was tough. And every month, the debt's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So great motivator. I worked my butt off to make sure that didn't happen, but very, very stressful.
Yeah.
And then there's that dynamic of working together with family. That's tough. It's really tough. Either it works or it doesn't, but it's not for every family. Yeah. And so be careful with that. But it's that saying, things are good when they're good.
Yeah.
But when they're not, things go bad, friendships get decimated. Family relationships get decimated. And we're talking about money. It's over money. But guess what? It's, we're emotional to it. It's a business we're all trying to, we're investing our lives in. And I get it. The stakes are super high, though, with friends and family. So, yes, that may be the easier access to cash. That may be an easier entry point, but exhaust everything into it just for the sake of those relationships. They're obviously more important than the business. Yeah. And that's about all I can say. Just be careful.
Yeah, that's very wise. So philanthropy plays a big role in your life. I remember browsing your website with my wife and just looking at the work you do in Africa and across the United States. It inspired us to want to do something on our as well. And so let's start from the beginning. How did this idea start?
I was asked to be on a Big Brothers Big Sisters board in my late 20s, and it was the first board I'd ever been on. And I'd been a big brother for a kid in college and liked the organization. So I joined the board, and just a unique thing happened. I'm with 20 other people. 15 of them are new. I've never met them. I'm not selling them. I'm not trying to get them to use my computer service or anything. It was just an organic relationship that built around helping these kids. But the end result was all of a sudden we're doing business with each other. Why? Because we have this trust built up. Yeah. I didn't have to make a cold call. I didn't have to put up, a bunch of sales techniques and try to wine and dine and do this. It was just organic, and it happened. And it was just this greatest win-win. We're all here together with this great cause, helping these kids. And in the end result, I also get business out of it. Yeah. Pretty good.
That's awesome.
So all of a sudden I'm on 7 boards, right? And it was too much. I played my hand a little bit. And I take board seats very seriously. If I can't contribute, don't take a seat. Don't be that guy. Yeah. It's there's too much at stake for these charities. They're there for a reason, to help. Yeah. And if you're not part of the solution and you're really not contributing, give up your seat. And the flip side, organizations need to treat their board seats as gold and be super protective of those. And so I whittled that back in the day, but it was a great win-win. And it really I got to see a lot of different, charities in Springfield where I grew up. But the Care to Learn, working with World Serve in Africa, those, a couple of things, I've always said they choose you. I didn't choose Care to Learn. There were some circumstances 15 years ago that happened. I'll call it divine intervention. And within a week, I knew we were going to do something. Didn't know it was going to be called Care to Learn. Yeah. I didn't even really understood the framework. I just knew there's a kid 3 miles from me right now hurting, and I can raise the money, but I can't find that kid. So we'll work with the school. We'll go and we'll set up the infrastructure. And we started raising money and spending it before we even had the name.
Wow. So, whenever you're looking at the numbers right now are 3 million plus. That's an overwhelming amount. What would you say time frame for someone wanting to start philanthropy work? How do you set those goals, and how do you achieve having such a big impact?
I sat down with a really successful guy here in Springfield who has started a great charity, and his asking was just that: I need to grow it, but I'm getting worn out.
Yeah.
There's only so much I can do. And the biggest thing you can do also in your companies, you build infrastructure, you hire great people, you partner with great people.
Right.
And I was fortunate enough to do that within Care to Learn, that we have great people. And so that's our ability to grow. And that's why we've grown as much as we can. I have so much pride when I can step in the back of the room and I'm watching this unfold. All these leaders and board members and volunteers, and just this machine is happening. And I sit back and drink coffee at that and just watch it happen. It's a beautiful thing. I'll always be super involved, but having a machine that runs outside of you is the goal.
Yeah. A lot of times when successful philanthropists are asked, hey, did you think it'd have such a big impact? They oftentimes say no. Is that how you feel?
When we started it, there was only going to be one chapter. There was no grand plan. And I give Steve Kleinsmith, who was the superintendent in Nixa, credit at the time. He heard about it and said, we want it in Nixa. Well, Ozark heard about it. Nixa gets it. They want one. So Ozark did it and has done phenomenal. They've been a great chapter. But then, again, business thing kicks in to me. Well, 3 chapters are good. 50's better. So
3 to 50.
And I was ready to get there. And I remember going, at that time we had about 15 chapters, and I went to my board, and this is Jack Stagg, Jim Anderson, Jerry Harmison, Stephanie Montgomery, Maury Mecklin, Matt Miller, John Wanamaker, I'm leaving out probably a couple, Bobby Allison. We had some really good business people on there. And I went to them with that goal of 100. We're going to get 100 chapters. And they da-da-da. And they told me, sit down. No, we're not. And I'm not used to hearing no a lot.
Yeah.
And maybe I need to hear it more, but super great wisdom. We didn't have the infrastructure to do that. It would have been a nightmare had I tried to grow that fast. And again, you're taking a board seat. Yeah. You're not yes people. You're there for a reason. Yeah. So exert your experience. They felt I was wrong. They told me I was wrong. I have to check my ego and understand, all right, what are they telling me that? And why am I hearing this in math? Yeah. So there must be something there. And they were right. Absolutely right. So I like the chutzpah. I like what's inside of me wanting to get there, but at the same time, I appreciated their wisdom. We're at 47 chapters today. We will cross 50 this year. We're all in the state of Missouri. We will be jumping borders here soon.
That's exciting.
We have the infrastructure in place to do it. We have an amazing staff. We have great leadership on our board and within our employees. And that had to happen first.
Yeah.
Just it.
Yeah, I listened to one of your leaders speak recently at an event, and it was really inspiring. It's like
Crystal.
Yeah, she was speaking as if she like started it, like it was hers.
Love it.
That's so inspiring to be able to do that. How do you get that level of commitment, whether it be in philanthropy work or in the business realm of things?
Well, we talked about the X factor a little bit, and again, there's something within Crystal herself that you're not going to get out of a class, and so it's just finding. She's an entrepreneur in the nonprofit space. Yeah. That's it. Wow. She wants to grow. But it's the attention to detail. When we do a business card or we do our logo or anything with Care to Learn or World Served, it is first class. And it's not to be ostentatious. That's not it. It's to be professional. You're asking me for my money. I don't want to know that you're working out of the back of your truck. I need to know that you are stable, that you're professional, and you're going to do what you say you're going to do. And you're going to be a good steward of my money. And so, but it's also our optics. That's the way our brain works. Why do we spend so much time on advertising and things? Because certain things resonate with people. I've got to remind you that we're alive, Care to Learn. I got to remind you of the services that we do, and we're no different. We are a business.
That's amazing. Whenever you're growing your philanthropy work, what are some steps you're taking right now to ensure that legacy continues after you retire or step aside?
One, I'll never retire. I won't. I'm going to be doing business deals at 109. I think that's what keeps you going. But again, it's just part of my interest in what I like. But the sustainability part are, again, others. There's just certain things you have to turn over and build a machine that can run outside of you. That's hard for a lot of founders. They want to be they're that, dominant personality, hard charging person that are used to pulling levers. We're not always the best one to do it. There are days Crystal's just better at it than I am. Wow. And there's days that our board members are better than me. So we've got to just find out our fits and things. Life's cyclical, right? I mean, there are just times, family happens and there's some good and some bad. And there's some times you're worn out. There's some times you're energized, right? And so you got to listen to those and let that work. I listen to those. I listened to that part of my life. And again, a younger version of me didn't. It was charge. There's just some days you got to realize you need to defer. You need help.
Yeah. I'm learning that reputation's big, whether it's in philanthropy or in business. And I've been following your journey for a long time. I think the first time was freshman year of high school. This had to have been almost 15 years ago. Stepan, my first employer, did some work for you and he spoke very highly of you. And from that very first time, I heard about you and how highly he spoke about you and your reputation to a most recent example. I remember earlier this year when I was seeking funding at a bank and someone asked me like, hey, how do you know so much about it? And I said, well, Doug's taught me a lot. And they're like, oh, Doug, he's so successful and this and that. And just the power your name carries, whether you, humbly decline it or acknowledge it or not. How does one build such a strong name and reputation? And then how long do you think that took you to reach in your life?
It probably goes back to what I was referring about my kids. It's not the things I say, it's the things that I do, right? They're watching you when you're not speaking. They're seeing how you act, what's held up the longest. It's the work of what it took to build the charities. It's not me going out and saying, hey, I started this charity. So I appreciate that. Again, I'm not keeping score. I'm not looking back that way. I really don't know. I do know it's easy to lose your name though, that fast. And so I will do everything in the world I can to protect it, but I'm pleased to be looked at in that light, and obviously some wins help you get there. But I'm a pretty quiet, private person. The relationship what my brother is has kind of forced some of that, but there's some protectionism there. And then also George Thompson from Thompson Chevrolet, he's not with us today, but I was talking with him, just kind of a little question and answer thing. I had him kind of one-on-one and was just picking his brain, and he was talking about their online sales at the time, and it was very successful. And I was like, I had no idea. I didn't even know that you were doing that. Yeah. And he looked at me and said, and why would you? Why would I tell anybody? Yeah. And I thought, that's pretty smart. I mean, he's figured out a business, the way to cash flow and move cars and do what he does, but he's not hitting his chest saying, look at me, look what I'm doing, how great it is. He was just locked into business, and it wasn't a need to brag or boast. It was about doing good business.
I got to know you a lot more, being here in Springfield, Missouri, and just following your journey for over 15 years now. You had mentioned your brother. Do you feel like people attribute that to you? And if so, how do you work on, hey, it's me and not about my brother?
Wow. I don't speak to this very often at all. Hardly never. It can be tough having a famous relative, and let's just say that sometimes celebrity siblings and family become memes and well earned, but there's a lot of pressure it can be. And for me, I just had to compartmentalize the fact that I'm going to be responsible for me. I got to do Doug the best way I can. And so really it's a non-event he's been famous for almost 30 years now at a high level, and super proud of him. He's super supportive, but I had to know my success had to be separate for me. Yeah. And he's super generous, would do anything I needed or asked. I just didn't want to be in a position to have to. Yeah. And so back to working with family, we're better as brothers than business partners, I'm sure. Yeah. And so, who knows, maybe later in life, I've kind of made my bones. He definitely has it. Things could work out a little different, but
let me know if you ever figure it out, because I haven't figured out how to work with my brothers. So if you find the secret to that, make sure you bring me up to speed. Yeah, I've noticed, following your journey, that you've done a really successful job of building your own name and the weight your name carries. I mean, it's astonishing. Even whenever I was announcing our interview, I had some individuals, one of which was a president of the bank, messaged me on LinkedIn and asked me, hey, how did you secure that interview? And, it's all relationship based, of course, and you just having a good heart. But what do you think was the pivotal moment in your career? Was it your entrepreneurial journey or your philanthropy philanthropy, or maybe it's a combination of both, that you felt like now you know your net worth?
My 40s probably. It really took.
It's almost like a life journey.
It really does. I sold my computer company when I was 40. I'm 57 now, but I bought it back 8 years later. But that was a pivotal moment to where I could take a breath, and it really did put me on the path for some other things that I could look at that were just coincidentally happened to be the year we started Care to Learn as well. So, or really about a year after. So really right in that time frame. But yes, just that was a big cultural shift and personal shift for me.
What made you want to come back and buy a business that you had sold?
I didn't. I trusted in Kevin, my business partner. He started with me when he was 18 working the front desk.
Wow.
And we had started a little company and we sold it. And this is why we still had it was a little side deal and we sold it. And so we did another one and it became very, very profitable. And we were actually utilizing our own company as our workforce. And it got to be such a big part of our company is why we decided to offer them to buy the whole thing back. And that was Kevin coming to me and saying, hey, let's do this. Where I was already doing a lot of real estate. My brain was kind of moved on to the next thing. And I just believed in him. I trusted him. My gut said he's worth fighting for. Let's do it.
That's awesome.
And he proved me right.
That's awesome. It's very fundamental. It seems like in a lot of aspects of your life, it's more about the people and the service and not so much the product.
And he's grown it. It's bigger than I ever had it.
Wow.
It's more profitable than I ever had it. And he said more bigger numbers than I ever did.
Wow.
So am I the smart guy or is he?
That's so neat. In regards to trusting people, do you feel like there's a certain time? My father-in-law oftentimes says you need to walk with them like 10 years, or is it just kind of situational based on the person before you have the trust to let them step up and take lead in one of your entities? There's
a gut thing going on, and I live and die by it. You just do. And I maybe do, again, the smarter version of me is a little slower to act. I'll ask more questions. I'll be a little bit more diligent in what needs to happen, but what is happening, what I think's happening, I'll do a little bit more research, a little bit more off the hip than I am now. Again, just wisdom.
Yeah.
But my gut, I have a feeling.
Yeah.
And both ways. An earlier version of me, I wanted to be polite. I wanted to be respectful. And sometimes I might even had a check in certain situations. And I'm kind of like, I want to be the peacemaker and ride some things out. Where now I don't suffer fools. I don't suffer situations. No's no, needs to be no. And not that I'm not worried about feelings and harming. I'm not ever going to harm somebody, but sometimes I'm harmed by allowing things to happen. And I'm a little bit more resilient in what Doug needs for his life to be happy.
We are in this like social media, TikTok, Instagram era.
It's awful, isn't it? It is.
I noticed you don't have a large presence. What is your view on that?
Oh, I'm guilty too. I live on my phone and it's awful. And I do kind of some forced downtime and it's almost refreshing, right?
Yeah.
The social media thing, hey, it's a great tool for business. And if you can maximize it to get exposure in some areas, then more power to you. You're dumb not to, right? Yeah. It's the personal, let's tell the world and show them everything. It's just gross to me.
Is that in regards to personal life or business or both?
No, it's probably more personal. Yeah. Get smart with your business. It's a tool. Your competition's doing it. You have to. And so we're somewhat a prisoner now to the technologies, but the whole self-grandizing and look at me thing, it's gross.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan.
You've mentioned some really big names, and those names, and even including your brother, don't have that big social media presence. Do you think that's a common thing in successful people?
I don't want to speak for my brother, but the best way he's always dealt with the press is don't look at it. And so I would read something, hear something, and I'd call him and say, what happened? You saved a dog on a beach, which was a literal story. And he's like, what are you talking about? And these stories would be in great detail of what happened. 100% made up.
Oh, wow.
And so most of it is, by the way, literally 100% made up. Not a fraction of truth, not a little snippet of. And so the way he dealt with it is just to do nothing. Yeah. Not a bad way to handle it. I didn't do a lot of the, and you know what? I wish I had done Twitter early on. It'd have been a great forum for my nonprofit work. Yeah. And I didn't do it because early Facebook was, how's your brother? Did you see him? I loved his movie. nice stuff, right? Oh, my eyes would just glaze over, and I didn't want to be answering those questions. I didn't want people having that kind of access for that reason. So I missed out.
I guess that in half probably answers the next question that I'm going to have. When you do see or meet these people that have this, like, I want to say kind of false flex, how do you define true success? Or how would you, when you're analyzing someone, kind of not judge them, but in a way say, hey, is this person successful, or no, this person is not successful?
Judging success is relative. I made a choice to live in Springfield, Missouri and raise my family here and work out of here. Had I decided to go to Manhattan and live, would I be more wealthy? Sure, I would have. Would it have been a better life? Could have been. Maybe not. Maybe so. So my measurement is what I chose to allow, and what did I maybe replace it with is not a great word. So again, success to me is having a healthy life, healthy family. Again, waking up, getting to be able to establish my own calendar. To me, that's success. And so if I'm measuring that by a bank account, there are people a lot more wealthy than I am, but maybe not as happy.
Yeah.
And, there are people that maybe don't have the resources that I do that or feel that they're super happy. That's the goal.
Yeah.
That's the goal. It sounds contrived. It sounds like, that's easy for you to say because, you can wake up and kind of make your own decisions, and that's fair.
Yeah.
I get it, but at the same time, it's true.
So it's not necessarily like right now, I think it used to be like, oh, if you make $1 million, you're successful. I think now it's a billion, or there's even conversations about $1 trillion. It's not so much a dollar amount, right?
I'll tell you this, if you're chasing a dollar amount, the goalpost it stops. It's always going to get moved. You say 2 million is the goal. If I had 2 million liquid, well, then that's great. I could live off the interest. I'd never have to, I'm set.
Yeah.
That is crap. You get to 2 million, you want 5. And as soon as you're about to hit 5, it's 10.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it starts exponentially. Well, what would it take to get to 25? And then it's to think that you can shut that down. That's a rarity.
Yeah.
I've never met one. I've never met a person business wise who operates that way, because your brain as business people, it's churn, right?
Yeah.
But to be able to actually shut off the faucet and say, okay, I'm done making money and I want to just live this life out. Hey, more power to you, but I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
And so how do I work within that? But that's a false idea. The idea that you can hit a number.
I noticed the more and more people I meet throughout my life, that goalpost does always move. I remember one time I told someone that, hey, we just broke 10 million in revenue into our not even full 2 years. And they're like, oh, wow, we did that yesterday. And I'm like, what do you mean? It's like in one day. And I'm like, wow, all this hard work.
But what's the net? What did you net?
Yeah, that's the real question.
It's so funny. Our business magazines, they grade you on what's your gross and how many employees. Those are the two dumbest numbers of all time, right? If I can make more money with my real estate company, we have 3 people.
Wow.
I've almost done $100 million.
Wow.
Well, then in holdings. Well, then if you have a company that has 50 employees and you've done X, what's better? A gross number means nothing to me. I don't even care about that number.
Wow.
What'd you net? At the end of the day, that's the number that matters, right?
Yeah.
But we don't measure that way. So you make the number 1 on the list because you have the most employees. Well, you may be also the most inefficient company out there. So
that's going to be my new question. Anytime someone brags about their revenue, I'm just going to quote you, what'd you net?
What'd you net? Yeah.
That's awesome. There's so much going on in the world today, and I'm sure you get it all the time. I get it all the time. People asking, what is your outlook on the next presidential election? Me being from Ukraine, what's your outlook on Ukraine? What's your outlook on what's going on in Israel? I wanted to first start kind of global aspect and then kind of work our way towards Missouri. And so starting globally, what is your outlook on all the kind of geopolitical world wars and different economies and globalization? Just kind of what is your outlook on the world in general?
I'd like to think people are good. There's people that are greedy as well. And so we're always going to have wars. We're always going to have these conflicts. I've had the privilege of traveling a lot. I've worked in Africa since 2006, been there over 30 times, and have met some amazing people and served some amazing people. And so at the end of the day, I'm optimistic. So things will work out. Can we be better global citizens? Absolutely. Do we need to think globally? Absolutely. At the end of the day, if it's a child in Ukraine, a child in Tanzania, a child here, I just said it, it's a child, right? And so so I would encourage people to go where their heart is. If I'm not called to Canada, but there's a lot of kids hurting there, but there's people that are, something inside of me wanted to help children and people in Tanzania and East Africa. So that's the thing that chose me, and that's the way I can make, influence and care to learn and hear, some things happen. So I would just encourage people to think globally and act locally, as they say, but at the end of the day, act socially the same.
I've kind of came across two views in this, going through the new year and all these holidays. There's people that say, hey, what's going on in the world is not as bad as what was going on 20 years ago. And there's people saying, hey, it's end of the world. Like, let's hunker down. What kind of viewpoint do you take?
I'm not real fatalistic. And plus at the same time, I can only control what I can control. So, I happen to be a faith-based person, and, all I can do is pray for guidance and be the best version of me to help my family and my friends. And again, those in our charities, but that's my sphere of influence. So I'm not going to get too worried outside of that, because it's not going to do any good. Yeah.
I like that. I like that a lot. So now let's work our way towards the United States. We have a presidential campaign coming up. We have, so much going on, just, interest rates and all this. What is your outlook for the United States of America?
I have no reason to not believe we'll be number one in the categories that matter. I believe we are super resilient. I'm going to fly the flag literally, and I feel good things ahead. The political thing is tough for me. It's a shame. Most people, business people, can't afford to run, and again, the presidency, it comes down to being a billionaire if you can run. But outside of that, we have a lot of great people in local politics, state politics, that'll never be able to run because they can't afford the pay cut, right? And so it's set up for people that maybe don't have the experience. And yet, think about it. You have people that literally never managed $1 million, and they're making, billion-dollar decisions? It makes no sense. We're the largest company as the United States, and yet we're run by people that don't understand economics. And our businesses would die if we did that, right? Let's take a senior, a kid who's taken an accounting class and have him come run, be the CFO for your company. That's basically what we've done. That's the way the system's set up. And I'm not taking a dig at anybody. We've got some great qualified politicians, but at the same time, the business way that we've set it up is just wrong. And so we kind of get what we get. I wish we had more business-oriented candidates. And unfortunately, it becomes too situational into some belief structure versus it's the ability to run a company. And I think it shows.
If you had the opportunity to go into politics, what do you think your number one kind of cause or initiative would be for Missouri?
I laughed a few years ago. I was asked by a Republican side and a Democrat side about running for the same office. And it was kind of funny to me that neither one of them knew where I stood. So I kind of liked that. But again, I would get back to competing. We can do better in competing with other states. And it really is kind of that nonprofit model too, is that, it's politics. No way. This is super competitive. And so what industries are we getting our butt kicked in? Where's the money, and what's the lost opportunity? Let's get super aggressive on those, and let's go compete and make us, I don't like being on the bottom of any list. And when I see those, in education or where in certain things that we're not in the top half, at least, I would get fired up about that. But for me, it'd be, how do we make this business better? So I'd want to
almost looking at the state like a business.
Oh, absolutely.
That's amazing.
Absolutely.
So, wrapping it up, you've had a lot of good points, and something that is very practical in today's society is a lot of pressure between brands. And so the reason I went with Suits and Shoes for this season and podcast was because I want to kind of not so much expose as inspire people that even the most successful individuals sometimes are just like ordinary people. They are ordinary people. And so the first good portion of this podcast, we covered what it takes to wear the shoes of a successful entrepreneur, or what it takes to be in the clothes of someone that has a busy lifestyle. Now I'd like to really just talk about it as it is. What kind of shoes do you prefer wearing in your day-to-day life?
they're going to be more tennis shoes at this point. In fact, there was a coffee table book called Hippie that we moved out of the way to get these mics set up. I think that's really more of the inner monologue of Doug and where I'm comfortable.
Yeah. Do you see yourself wearing like a suit and tennis shoes?
Heck no. But for me to wear a tie, something either really good happened or really bad happened. And it's just, I feel fortunate again in my career to be more relaxed. That's more of my style and where I'm comfortable.
Yeah.
It's fun to dress up every once in a while,
right.
But I kind of did my time, if you will, of wearing ties and needing to do that.
Yeah.
And that's one perk of kind of that phase of life where you get to make some of your own decisions.
So you have your philanthropy side and your business side. How would you describe your dressing, your clothes that you wear on the business side, and then how do you describe it on the philanthropy side?
I'm going to wear the exact same thing.
Really? That's awesome.
The exact same thing.
Yeah.
And it'll be comfortable too.
Comfortable. How do you define, do you do like, pants and a dress shirt, or do you just like, how do you define, comfortable clothing?
Well, for me, it's this, literally it's the shirt with the t-shirt, and, you're going to see this. This is basically what I'm wearing.
Yeah.
And I want to respect the situation that I'm in. So again, if I'm at maybe a bank board, I'm going to dress up for the occasion. I want to respect the place that I'm at. A social deal, make sure you're not the worst dressed, make sure you're the best dressed. I'd rather be overdressed than under, but so dress to your occasion. But comfort's on my brain, and it's just part of my style. It's what I...
Yeah. Do you think that came early on in your career, or is that something you've acquired through life?
Oh, I don't even... It's just, again, paying attention to details.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then for those of you that are curious and constantly asking about me, I kind of take the same approach. I tried early on doing the whole suit and tie, and I didn't feel like myself. And I kind of found my comfortable self is a casual dress shirt and just golf pants. I don't know why, but I didn't grow up golfing, but of times.
Played golf with you, I know that.
Yes, you did very well. I would definitely say you're on the pro level. And so, a lot of days I'm just in some golf pants or some khakis. Definitely comfort is key for me. Well, Doug, I really appreciate it. I appreciate your time with us. We are going to do a giveaway. We're going to give away a pair of AirPods. So, if you'd like to subscribe and make a comment, and out of the comment section, we're going to pick someone to gift a pair of AirPods. And so that as you continue your entrepreneurial journey, you can listen to podcasts like this one that will have a positive impact on your life. Thank you so much.
Best to you.